Sometimes it can take a while for a project to really come together on a model railroad. There can be lots of reasons for this, and today we're going to look at an area of my layout that's been sitting empty for far too long, and talk about what I intend to do about it. Hi everybody, I'm Joe Parker of the Pixel Depot. Welcome back to my subscribers. If you're new here, however, this channel covers model railroading, including planning, hints, tips, how-tos, and updates. To stay up to date, click on the subscribe button. Also, click on the bell so you'll get notified when there's new content available. And if you want to complete the package, click on the like button too. Sure, it helps my analytics, but it also makes me happy. It's the little things, you know? In this episode, I'm going to talk about an area on my layout that I call Eastern Avenue. A little while back, I did a couple of videos about the scrap metal industry that lives in this corner of my Monument City Terminal Division layout. My intent there was to talk about building that industry in particular, but as I got into it, I realized that I wanted to put up a backdrop before I did the scenery, and I couldn't do the backdrop until... Wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's back up a few steps. If you're anything like me, it can take a while before a construction plan fully forms in your head. Some people may think it's procrastination, but I don't think it is. I mean, I really don't procrastinate that much. Although now that I think about it, I could finish this video later. I'm not allowed to just get up and leave. Fine. Dictator. Okay, so I have been known to procrastinate from time to time, but more often, for me at least, things on the layout bog down because I haven't been able to finalize the idea in my head. And that's the root of the problem here. I haven't done scenery at Cambridge Iron and Metal because I want to put this backdrop up on the wall to provide some depth. I can't finalize the location of the backdrop because I want to minimize the effect of the edges of the photo and hide at least this one with the structure that will go in the corner. I can't build the structure in the corner because it's part of the massive Crown Cork and Seal main building. I haven't finished the Crown Cork and Seal building because I haven't been able to figure out how to kit bash this funky corner of the building. And I also suck at bridges, but more on that later. All that is a long way of saying I need a plan for this corner. Along with following me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, you can also now support me on Patreon. Subscribers can get great exclusive bonuses like behind-the-scenes footage, live streams, and merchandise, including stickers, t-shirts, and maybe even a couple of surprises, so check it out and help support the channel. Doing all this ensures that I can keep providing you with videos just like this one. Let's rewind about 2 years to the point when I started working on a building for the corner. This will be the home to Crown Cork and Seal. The prototype in Baltimore is a massive complex that takes up quite a bit of area. During my time frame of 1984, I don't believe it was rail-served anymore, but I still thought it would make a good, hefty structure to fill the corner and take some of the attention away from the harsh right angle of the walls without having to worry about coving the corner. It will be right behind the Cambridge Iron and Metal main building. Here's some prototype photos of the Crown Cork and Seal building. As you can see, there's a ton of just stuff here, and it's clear that it was built up over time with lots of odd additions featuring different architectural styles and interesting shapes and angles. I tackled the project by starting with this large section, which I decided to build using DPM modular pieces, since they look the part. DPM parts aren't my favorite thing to work with, honestly, because no matter how much measuring, filing, and adjustment I do, I never seem to be able to get them just square and flush. So there always seems to be gaps showing in various places. That said, for a background structure, I thought that I could get away with it. Much of the structure will be hidden behind the Cambridge Iron and Metal building, so hopefully those imperfections won't be too noticeable. The other issue I had was getting these long runs to maintain their structural integrity. Why does it need to be a flat instead of a more stable structure, you ask? More on that later. At any rate, my plan was to use chunky pieces of styrene strip to brace it, but Then I got into this chicken and egg thing about whether to put the windows in first or put the bracing on first. And if I put the bracing on, would I be able to get the windows to lie flat, or would it be too hard to glue them in? And if I put the windows in first, then would I still have trouble with the glass? Or should I just use gator foam for structural integrity? And if I do that, will it cause issues because it makes the flat too thick? Welcome to my head. No, I will not cover the cost of the therapy you now need. Beyond the troubles with the DPM parts, there's this section that fronts the alley, and I decided to use pieces of a Walthers REA kit here. But then there's this tower in the corner. I've been struggling with how to represent it. Clearly I'll need something that juts out from the DPM structure, but what to use? I've considered pieces from a Walthers American Hardware Supply kit, but I'm not completely convinced. And whatever I use, I don't want to spend a lot of time scratch building. Obviously, I could just ignore it, and 99.86% of people wouldn't know the difference, or so says my team of statisticians. But it's important to me to have at least a reasonable representation, even if it's not perfect. Long story longer, when I get into dilemmas like this, my go-to seems to be shut it down until you figure it out and work on other things. Which I've done, except it's been 2 years, and as you heard before, I want to get on with it, even though I'm not that much closer to a solution. So it's decision time. Soon, I think. Maybe? Meanwhile, there are also 2 overpasses in this section of the layout. To the left, the track crosses over what used to be an entrance to the Crown Complex. There's still access to the building there today, and this was an interesting feature that I wanted to include. To the right is the actual Eastern Avenue underpass. The Conrail line, as well as Chessie's Baltimore and Ohio, crossed above Eastern Avenue right in this vicinity, and this was another element I wanted to include on the layout. In reality, they weren't nearly as close as I have them on the layout, but I had to condense the distance between them quite a bit to get everything to fit. And there's a small staging area that represents Conrail's Boston Street branch that will be behind the Crown, Cork, and Seal building. And that is why the wall needs to be a flat. The Crown, Cork, and Seal structure will help hide the fact that it's a track to nowhere. And this is where me sucking at bridges comes in. Based on the photos, I think I can get a reasonable representation of the Eastern Ave road overpass on the right using extruded foam and styrene. The problem has been the bridge over the access road, which interestingly is also technically part of Eastern Ave. Who knew? I acquired some micro-engineering kits with the intention of mingling them to get something that worked. The first part was this, which my friend kit-bashed to my specifications. Except once it was built and I looked back at the prototype photos, the panels on the sides are way too large, not to mention overkill from a civil engineering perspective. But since someone else went through the trouble of building it, I kinda don't have the heart not to use it, so I've been trying to make it work. Also, I've been fiddling on and off with the extensions on each side of the bridge, but haven't made great progress, and I think it's because I'm unhappy with the bridge in general. So, it's decision time. Soon, I think. Maybe? Before we talk about a plan of action to help you visualize things, here's the track plan for this area as it currently stands. The 3D renderings I'll be showing are from the MCTD track plan that I made in a product called Third Planet. I'll include a link to my blog in the description, and the blog includes a page on the iterations of the track plan. For my thoughts on track plans, you can refer both to the blog as well as to the video I did for my series on building the grunge layout. So in terms of moving forward, here's how I see it. This view shows the area as it was before anything went in, although it's a little deceiving. This view doesn't show anything underneath the track to support it. If I drop the view down a little bit, you can see right through to the wall, so you kind of have to ignore that, at least for now. I should mention this red square on the right. That's the location of the vent pipe for my spray booth, and to tell you the truth, it's pretty unsightly, as you can see here. I've not yet come up with a great plan to hide that, so if you've got any ideas, feel free to put them in the comments. The next step, and I've already done some of this, is to put in the landforms. The basic shapes made of extruded foam are already in place, although I suspect I'll need to form and adjust them a little bit. Now we add in the Cambridge iron and metal buildings. The large structure is already in place. The office building, which I built from a Walthers O.L. King coal kit, is also built, although I haven't finalized its location. The last piece here are the 2 large silo structures. I talk about their prototype more in the video I made on Cambridge Iron and Metal, so if you want more information, I suggest checking that out. I originally intended to build these silos using PVC pipe, and then I almost killed myself trying to cut them with a miter saw, which made me seriously reconsider that plan. Crazy, right? So I need to get some different equipment to make that happen, and I just haven't bought it yet, but we'll get there eventually. After that will be the crown, cork, and seal buildings, which I've greatly simplified here in the drawing. But I'll figure out a solution, or solutions as the case may be. And then I can attach the backdrop, which currently just rests on the layout, although even in that state I think it looks pretty good. What do you think? Once the buildings are done, or more likely at roughly the same time, I can work on the bridges, and the more I consider it, the more I think I will bite the bullet and build a different bridge. Sorry, Tom. Then I can put the roads in. I use foam for my roads, and I'll be doing a video on that in the future. Truth be told, those will likely need to go down before the bridges are installed, but this is the order I took the screenshots in, so yeah. Those steps cover the brunt of the work in this area. There will also be scenery to put in afterwards, though. The view here is simplified, as I plan to include other elements, including a representation of an actual billboard I saw during a visit to Baltimore more than a couple years ago. And finally, I can put up the fascia. Simple, right? So, it's time to get started. Soon, I think. Maybe. Seriously though, I think I'll have the appropriate motivation to get moving on this. One of the really good things about having this channel is that when I tell you guys something's going to happen, it usually does. I kind of feel like there's an expectation that I set when I tell you things and that you're out there waiting patiently for me to deliver. You probably don't care at all, but don't tell me that. So that's all for this episode. I hope this clued you into my thought process, as messed up as it might be, on getting ready to work on a section of the layout. I also hope you'll join me as I go through the process of building out that corner. Those videos are sure to touch on a lot of different modeling topics, so it should be an interesting ride. If you've ever run into roadblocks like the ones I talked about here, I'd love to hear about them, and I especially want to hear from you to tell me about what you did to overcome them. You can do all of that in the comments below. Also, that is the place for thoughts, suggestions, or questions. If you enjoyed this video and think others would too, click on the thumbs up to like it, tell your friends, and spread the word. For more great content, you can check out these links over here. I'm Joe Parker of the Pixel Depot. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll meet me next time in the train room.